about her work that they burned down her office and chased her out of town. But Wells didn't give up. She worked for justice her entire life. In 1909, she helped create the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. The NAACP helped plan many civil rights protests. It still exists today. Chapter 1. A Troubled Past. When people talk about the civil rights movement, they usually mean the period in the 1950s and 1960s when African Americans fought for the same rights that white people had. Segregation was the worst in the South. Besides having to sit in separate rows in buses, black people went to separate schools, drank from separate water fountains, stayed in separate hotels, lived in separate neighborhoods, and were not allowed to vote. The United States Declaration of Independence says, "All men are created equal." But when it was written in 1776, 1 out of every 5 people was enslaved. They had been kidnapped from Africa and sold to white Americans like property. In the southern states, white people depended on slave labor to run their farms and plantations. But many northern states wanted to make slavery illegal. Rather than agree to this, in 1860, 11 southern states began to break away. In 1861, they formed a new country, the Confederate States of America. It included Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, South Carolina, Texas, Arkansas, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia. The border states of Kentucky and Missouri had divided loyalties. The North wanted the states to stay united. This led to the Civil War. When it ended in 1865, the South had lost, and slavery in the United States was over at last. The following year saw the first Civil Rights Act. It said all people born in the United States were considered U.S. citizens. As citizens, black people now had the right to full and equal benefit of all laws as enjoyed by white citizens. In 1870, a new Civil Rights Act attempted to support black men's right to vote, as granted by the 15th Amendment. Even so, African Americans continued to face discrimination. Discrimination means they were treated differently because of the color of their skin. The southern states created new laws that denied African Americans their rights. These were called the Black Codes, also known as Jim Crow laws. Jim Crow was a character in music shows that made fun of black people. White actors would darken their faces with burnt cork and dress in rags. Jim Crow was clumsy and not very smart. He was meant to insult black people. Jim Crow laws were used to make black people second-class citizens. Second-class citizens are people who are not given equal rights. Jim Crow laws made it hard for black citizens to lead a decent life. White people would not sell farmland to black people or allow them to attend good schools. African Americans were prevented from voting so they could not elect people who would fight on their behalf. Many African Americans moved to the North or out West for a better life. From 1915 to 1970, around 6 million black people migrated from the South. They still faced racism and unfairness, but life was harder for those who remained. Racism was not restricted to the South. Even the Supreme Court ignored the rights of black citizens. The Supreme Court is the highest court in the nation. What it says is the law remains the law. In 1896, a case went before the Supreme Court. The case was called Plessy v. Ferguson. Homer Plessy was a black activist who challenged a new law in Louisiana that blocked people of color from riding in white train cars. This law took away freedoms Plessy had grown up with